January 1945. A snookered road in eastern Germany near Landsberg, under Worth. A column of Soviet T-34 tanks rumbles west. Tracks grinding through frozen mud. Among them rides an American paratrooper in a Soviet uniform, a PPSH-41 submachine gun slung across his chest. His name is Joseph Beyrle, Staff Sergeant, 101st Airborne Division, U.S. Army. Months earlier, he jumped into Normandy on D. Fought Germans in France, was captured, escaped repeatedly, and survived German POW camps. Now he fights alongside the Red Army, manning a Lend-Lease Sermon tank crewed by Soviets. MBS explode, shrapnel tears into the tank. Beyrle is wounded again and evacuated to a Soviet field hospital. There, Marshal Georgy Zhukov visits, intrigued by the only non-Soviet patient, through an interpreter. Beyrle explains his journey. D-Day jump, capture, escapes. Joining the Soviets after proving himself Amerikansky Tovarish, Zhukov listens. Then orders papers for his return to American lines. How does an American paratrooper end up fighting for the Soviet Red Army in the same war? Serving in combat against the same enemy, on the same front, even in a tank, and become the only known soldier to do so. This is the astonishing path of Joseph Beyrle. Captured by Germans, escaped, joined Soviets, wounded with them, repatriated by Zhukov himself. A single man wore two Allied uniforms, fired at the same foe from two sides, in the brutal winter push toward Berlin. To understand the extraordinary nature of Beyrle's story, consider the chaos of the European theater in late 1944 and early 1945. The Allies invaded Normandy on June 6, 1944. The 101st Airborne Division, Screaming Eagles, jumped behind German lines in Operation Overlord. Joseph Beyrle, from Muskegon, Michigan, was a demolitions expert in the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. He landed alone after his sticks scattered, fought in hedgerows, was captured 3 times by Germans, escaped twice, and spent months in camps including Stalag 12A and Stalag 3C. By January 1945, the Red Army advanced rapidly from the east after Operation Begression and the Viskerloder Offensive. German forces retreated, POW camps were evacuated or overrun. Beyrle escaped Stalag 3C during a march, headed east. Hoping to meet Soviets, he encountered a tank battalion of the 1st Guards Tank Brigade. 1st Guards Tank Army. Initially suspected as a German spy, he proved his identity with American cigarettes and the phrase, Amerikansky Tovarish, American comrade. Captain Aleksandra Samusenko, a rare female tank commander, overruled skeptics. Gave him a Soviet uniform, PPSH-41 submachine gun, and a position on a Sherman tank Lend-Lease M4A2. Beyrle fought for about a month. Demolitions, skills useful in urban fighting, tank crew duties. His unit liberated Stalag 3C, ironically, freeing his former camp. In early February, German Stukas attacked. Beyrle was wounded, evacuated to hospital in Landsberg, and met Zhukov, who arranged repatriation via Moscow and Odessa. Beyrle returned to U.S. control in April 1945. The event mattered because it symbolized unlikely Allied cooperation against a common enemy. Beyrle received medals from both U.S. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Soviet honors, including Order of the Red Star equivalents. He is the only documented American to serve in combat with both armies. His story highlights POW hardships, escape risks, and the fluid front lines where individuals could cross into Soviet-held areas. Weapons included USM-1 Garand rifle, Thompson. Soviet PPSH-4 one-drum magazine, 7.62 x to 50M. T-34 and Sherman tanks, 76mm guns. Heavy armor. The Sherman Beyrle crude was reliable, though Soviets preferred T-3 for S&O tank reward as personal gift, but he was assigned to Crew 1. January 1945, mid-afternoon. A snow-swept road near Landsberg and Durworth, eastern Germany. The temperature hovers below freezing. Breath freezes on scarves. Staff Sergeant Joseph Beyrle, escaped from Stalag 3C, moves east through woods, hoping to reach Soviet lines. He wears a ragged German greatcoat over his US uniform. A stolen PPSH-41 submachine gun drum magazine loaded with 7.62 x 25mm Tokarev rounds. Slung across his back, his boots are wrapped in rags for warmth. He has survived months of captivity, beatings, forced marches, and 2 previous escapes. A low rumble grows. T-34 tanks appear around a bend. Wide tracks churning snow. 76mm guns pointed forward. Red Army infantry follows. Rifles ready. Beyrle steps into the road, hands raised. Coat open to show the American flag patch on his shoulder. Amerykański towarzysz, he shouts, voice hoarse. American comrade. The lead tank halts. Turret swivels toward him. A hatch opens. Captain Aleksandra Samusenko, a young woman in a tanker helmet, leans out, pistol in hand. She eyes him suspiciously. Spies and saboteurs are common. Beyrle reaches into his pocket slowly, pulls out a pack of Lucky Strike cigarettes. Unmistakable American brand. AO first him Samusenko takes one. Lights it. Inhales. A faint smile. She gestures him closer. Through broken German and gestures, Beyrle explains. D-Day jump. Capture. Escapes. Stalag 3C. Now free and fighting Germans. Samusenko nods, motions him onto the tank. He climbs the sloped armor, sits behind the turret. The column moves west. Days pass. Beyrle proves useful. His demolitions training from the 101st Airborne helps clear obstacles. He is given a Soviet uniform, fur hat, and a place in a Lend-Lease M48 a Sherman tank crew. The Sherman 275mm gun. .50 caliber machine gun on the roof. Powered by a General Motors 6046 twin diesel, is familiar. He trained on Simulant US. He mans the bow machine gun, fires at German positions during village clearances. The PPSH-41 stays with him for close work, high rate of fire, reliable and cold. One action stands out. A German strongpoint blocks the advanced machine guns in a ruined farmhouse. Panzerfaust teams waiting. Beyrle volunteers for a flanking move. He crawls through snow with 2 Soviet infantrymen, places explosives on the building's foundation. The blast collapses the wall. The Sherman's 75mm gun opens up, shells smashing the position. Germans surrender or flee. No Soviet losses in that assault. Beyrle fights for nearly a month. He participates in skirmishes, helps liberate small towns, even briefly returns to Stalag 3C. Now overrun by Soviets. To see familiar faces freed, he earns respect from the crew. Reliable under fire, quick with grenades.com when Stukas dive. Early February 1945. The column advances near a crossroads. German WWII 7 Stukas attack. Sirens screaming, bombs falling. One bomb lands close to Beyrle Sherma. Shrapnel tears into his leg and side. He is pulled from the turret, bleeding heavily, carried to a field hospital. Medics stabilize him. In the ward, word spreads of the American soldier fighting with the brigade. Marshal Georgy Zhukov arrives on inspection. He stops at Beyrle's cot. Through an interpreter, Zhukov asks questions. Beyrle explains his path. Normandy, captivity, escape, joining the Soviets. Zhukov listens, then orders papers prepared. Beyrle is to be He receives Soviet medical treatment, a commendation and safe passage to Moscow, then Odessa, for return to American forces. During the Stuka attack in early February 1945, the Sherman column advances through open fields toward a German-held village. Beyrle, in the bow gunner's position, spots the dive bombers first, black shapes peeling off from high altitude, sirens wailing. The lead Stuka releases bombs. Explosions walk across the snow. One bomb detonates close to Beyrle's tank. Shrapnel rips through the hole, tears into his right leg and abdomen. Pain. Explodis. He slumps against the machine gun mount, blood soaking his Soviet uniform. Crewmates drag him from the turret, lay him in the snow. A medic applies pressure, bandages the wounds. Beyrle remains conscious, gripping the PPSH-41, refusing morphine until the attack ends. The column fights back, T-34s, and Sherman's opened fire with 76mm and 75mm guns, 12.7mm DSHK machine guns sweeping the sky. One Stuka is hit, crashes in flames. The rest break off. Beyrle is carried to a field hospital in Landsberg. Surgeons remove shrapnel, stitch wounds. He recovers slowly. Infection threatens, but Soviet penicillin holds it off. Word reaches Marshal Zhukov. During a visit to the hospital, Zhukov stops at Beyrle's bed. Through an interpreter, he questions the American who fought with his tanks. Beyrle recounts D-Day, the jumps, captures, escapes. The moment he proved himself with lucky strikes. Zhukov nods, orders immediate repatriation. Papers, transport to Moscow, then a flight to Odessa. Beyrle is moved under guard, not as prisoner, but as honored guest. He reaches American lines in April 1945, debriefed by US officers. His story is verified. The only documented American to serve in combat with the Red Army. He receives US medals, Bronze Star, Purple Hearts, and Soviet honors, including recognition from the 1st Guards Tank Brigade. The resolution is quiet repatriation. Beyrle returns home, marries, raises a family, rarely speaks of the war unless asked. The Sherman recruit continues fighting until VA Day. His journey from Normandy paratrooper to Soviet tank rider ends with survival and 2 sets of medals. From 2 Allied armies, the lesson is stark. In war's chaos, survival can depend on unlikely alliances. Beyrle crossed front lines, proved his identity with cigarettes and courage, and fought the same enemy in 2 uniforms. He did not choose the path. Circumstance forced it, yet he adapted, fought, and lived, because he refused to remain a prisoner, refused to die, and trusted strangers who became comrades. Staff Sergeant Joseph Beyrle lay in a Soviet field hospital bed near Landsberg, under Worth, in early February 1945. Leg bandaged, side stitched, pain dulled by the first real rest in months. The ward smelled of carbolic soap and wet wool. Around him, wounded Red Army soldiers spoke in low Russian. Beyrle, in a borrowed Soviet tunic, waited quietly. He had fought from Normandy hedgerows to German POW camps, escaped, joined a Soviet tank brigade, and now recovered from shrapnel that nearly ended him on a Ländliche. Marshal Georgy Zhukov's visit changed everything. The Soviet commander stopped at Beyrole's cot, studied the American who had fought under his tanks. Through an interpreter, questions came. How he jumped on D-Day, survived captivity, proved himself with lucky strikes, and a shout at Amerikansky Tobori. Zhukov listened without interruption. Then he gave an order. Papers prepared. Transport arranged. Beyrle would go home, not as prisoner, but as a soldier honored by both sides. He traveled under Soviet escort to Moscow, then Odessa, boarded a ship to the United States. In April 1945, he reached American lines, was debriefed, and eventually returned to Muskegon, Michigan. He married, raised children, worked a normal life. He rarely spoke of the war unless pressed, and when he did, it was without boast. Just the facts. A jump, a capture, an escape, a tank, a wound, a marshal who listened. Beyrle received medals from both armies. The United States awarded him the Bronze Star and Purple Heart. The Soviet Union gave recognition for his service with the 1st Guards Tank Brigade, the only documented American to fight in combat for both. He met Soviet veterans years later, shared stories, smoked lucky strikes again. The Sherman he crewed rolled on to Berlin. The PPSH-41 he carried stayed behind. His story remained quiet, no parades, no books, until later, when historians pieced it together from records and his own reluctant words. This is not a tale of divided loyalties. It is one of survival in wars, chaos, where front lines blur, where a man can wear 2 uniforms, fire at the same enemy from 2 sides, and still come home. Beyrle did not choose to fight for the Soviets. Circumstance forced him into it. He did not seek Zhukov's attention. He earned it by simply refusing to die. From Normandy to the Elbe, through camps and tanks, he endured because he kept moving forward. Toward freedom, toward comrades, toward whatever came next. In war, alliances can be temporary, borders fluid, identities complicated. Beyrole's path crossed them all. He fought, he survived, he returned. And in the end, he proved that a single soldier can belong to more than one army and still come home American. I've just said what's recorded in history. You should find out the real truth yourself. We have written the sources from which we got this story in the description of this video. And we have always been and will be supporters of the oppressed, regardless of their color, race, or country. This world and its creator are also with the oppressed. If this incredible journey, one man fighting for 2 armies, left you stunned, drop a like. Share your thoughts in the comments. Could you have survived that path? And subscribe for more forgotten World War II stories. Hit the bell so you never miss the next WWII story.